shifts.
Right,
Maybe not.
that's,
Okay.
we'll talk about that a little bit too. This cost of shift coverage, this was just something that I think Chief Harris put up as what they'd estimate to cover the shift of an existing firefighter getting ALS training if in fact that shift wasn't covered. Now in the plan we're presenting, we've scheduled out the acquisition of personnel, new personnel, so that doesn't happen. But to give you an idea of the additional cost to cover those shifts, remember, they're off to school, but you know, it's one shift every 4 days that you'd be covering for a block of time when that individual's in class.
Is it annual?
What?
Annually? Is once in a lifetime?
No,
When this gentleman.
yeah, that would be,
When this personnel goes to school, we'd have to fill the shifts because there's only 4 guys.
I understand.
So every time we fill a shift, if it falls on his scheduled day to work, we'd have to fill a shift, so that,
I'm asking, is it a non-recurring cost? Is it a recurring
Non-recurring.
cost?
it's a non-recurring cost. As soon as the class is over,
and the plan we put together, we're not doing it that way, but that's what it would cost if you
But
were.
what's the recertification requirements and
I think he's got that on. the
additional
slides.
education requirements and
I think
ongoing?
that's all on the slides, I believe. The research and so forth are on the next slides.
Yeah, it's coming,
Yeah.
forthcoming slides.
Jeff,
Is the employee, while in training, under salary at that, being paid at that time?
yeah, of course.
Okay.
So, new employee equipment.
Back to, of course? Of course.
Yeah.
Covered, of course?
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you were just saying that the cost of the shift coverage while they're at school.
Right.
What I said in the financial plan we're presenting, we're not sending someone off to, it's a negotiable item, first of all.
Right.
But we're not sending a firefighter in the plan I'm presenting off to school, right, without having someone covering that shift,
Right.
one of our new firefighters. So in other words, basically, we're not gonna send any existing employees off for ALS training for the whole first year. Because we're getting our ALS hired newbies, firefighter training, they have to go to firefighter school, and then on a shift. And then now there's someone free. So during this period of time, the proposal is that we maintain 4-man shifts, and when an existing employee is being trained, getting ALS training, there would be a new fireman filling that slot. So we wouldn't incur the $15,000 price, but we put it there to show if it was done differently, that would be an exposure that would have to be covered, okay? Jeff,
Yeah, I'm fine.
you're all set?
Yeah,
So,
in just the ALS stipend?
that's different thing.
That's a different thing. And that's non-recurring or is that recurring?
It's,
No, that would be recurring.
well, recurring to the extent that each firefighter goes out to be ALS trained. Once again, it's a negotiable item, but
Okay.
it's anticipated. What we've seen in other departments, they've received a stipend because while they're out getting their schooling and their certification, they're unable to pick up an overtime shifts. So they have a loss in income.
Oh,
So that stipend is for those that go out.
For being
to get-
unable to answer the whistle, answer the callbacks.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
So that's for
Yeah.
being unable to answer the callbacks. That's not additional money added to the base salary because they're ALS certified.
Correct.
All right, so this is just for the time period that they're out getting training and are missing the call.
That was my understanding. Is that fair, guys?
And that again falls
That's
into
what's
the
not recurring,
category.
Okay.
Right, turnout gear, that's the new employees, that's their main firefighting gear. There's a contract, there's $1,000 annual clothing allowance. And because they're new people, we've included that in the plan. there's a Class A uniform. I guess that's not an annual thing, that's more once, right? Physical required, which the town pays for, there's a psychological exam. And then there's a radio. Now, the radios are for, adding the 4 personnel over a period of time. So those were items that we highlighted as needs to implement the program. Any questions on that?
The only reoccurring cost is gonna be the clothing allowance on this here.
Right. So assumptions that we made in terms of coming up with a revenue plan to see if we can make this thing work. And, first, the bad news. Originally, when we started this, we had high hopes to get a grant which would cover the cost and benefits of 4 firefighters for 2 years. And the agreement that had to be signed as part of the grant was that we had to agree to keep those 4 people for 3 years. So in other words, if we had the grant, did I get it right or wrong?
Total of 3 years, 1 year after the grant was done.
Right, that's what I said.
No, you said 3
You
additional.
said 3.
You said, I think
2
he
years
meant
after
what,
the grant.
he meant what he explained, but
It's 2
I
years
just want to
on the
be clear,
grant
it's
and
3.
then 1 additional
Right.
year.
So the requirement was that we had to keep them for 3 years.
Doesn't matter, we're not getting the
2
grant.
years on the
We're
grant.
not getting the grant. Correct.
Not this year, doesn't.
That hasn't happened, so
Well, it says not available, so that means it's not gonna happen.
it's not.
Not for year one.
I mean,
Not
it's
for
not
year
gonna
one,
happen in the
okay.
time frame that we wanna kick this thing off.
All right, that's fine.
And, if we sit around and wait for it, it may never happen,
No, I
we don't
agree.
know.
But we'll still pursue it.
So, but if we had the grant, we would bring on the 4 new firefighters immediately and send them off to firefighter school, and then we'd be implementing, getting to full ALS sooner.
What's the game plan to get the grant? Is there a game plan?
Chief?
It's already been forwarded. We wrote the grant, sent it in, submitted like you're supposed to, and now it's just a waiting game to see if they're going to give us the grant.
Sometime
Some
next
Homeland
year,
Security.
potentially.
I'm sorry,
Sometime
Yeah.
in 2010.
You have to, you have to
have to
reapply.
reapply again.
Reapply again. In 2010.
Yeah.
Haven't there been several rounds, though?
There's been 8 rounds up to this point, and they go until the money is gone.
Okay.
Is the money gone?
Not yet, no.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So our grant application is still
in there.
still in the pipeline.
And efforts were made to reach out to, I believe, our congressman.
Congressman, Senator.
So, the efforts have been made.
So far, the largest CFR.
It's a state grant, correct?
Federal grant.
Often.
We're using a conservative estimate of revenue. We're only hiring ALS qualified personnel, so we eliminate that piece of the cycle. We're adding 4 ALS qualified firefighters over 3 years, bringing them in all at once. So we have to build our revenue stream up to fund it. Beginning in 2012, we train a minimum of 2 per year of existing personnel. Again, this is a collective bargaining issue. But we can't get to it before then because we have to have replacement trained new people on a shift before we can send someone off, or we'd be paying overtime to fill that shift, which doesn't fit into the financial plan. Full ALS operation actually begins in FY 2014. When I say full, meaning at that point, we're considering, as you'll see in the financial plan, that we'd be getting full revenue from ALS. The ALS stipend, this would be what, a negotiable item, of course, but this is what a lot of communities are paying someone that's ALS qualified in an ALS program over their base rate. Right now, the EMS rate is, help me there,
Basic EMT is factored into the base, but it's 10%.
it was 10% back whenever. No additional overtime.
That used to be a stipend, but what we did when we negotiated a few contracts
Right.
ago, we just said,
Converted
everybody has to
it.
be EMT certified, so add it to the base rate and move on. No more stipend.
And then, The next item is no additional overtime, minimum shift size is 4 men. That's the assumptions of getting this plan in place. Again, that's a negotiable item. So some assumptions involve collective bargaining, and we're not gonna deal with that aspect of it this evening. Okay, manpower acquisition and training. Now, let me explain this. The mustard color represents on the top section, represents when a brand-new firefighter is added to the staff. An additional firefighter, not necessarily because we're adding 2, one almost immediately and one in July. Now, one of those 2 is a replacement for an employee. So I'm not counting that as the additional firefighters coming on board. So there'd be 1 additional firefighter coming on board July 1 or Q1 of this year, FY 2011, and then we have 1 in Q1 of 2012, 1 in Q3 of 2012, and the last one in Q1 of 2004. I'm sorry,
No, 2013.
13.
FY 13. Any questions about that? That's just,
You're talking about adding 2 in fiscal year 2012.
right, but staggered by 6 months. Then, if you look at the next section, what you've got is ALS trained. It's a list of ALS trained personnel. So the reddish orange or magenta color is 2 existing firefighters that are trained already. They're on the staff, Herbie Batchelder and Mike Tanyan. Mike has got a couple courses to take, but it's just about there. And then we have the replacement for Andy Nichols, who's this new hire that we've just brought on. It will be going, these are ALS trained. And then the additional firefighter that we're bringing on in July. So those are the 4 people that will be on board that are ALS trained, come July 1. And not that they are all, 2 of them are not firefighter trained at this point, so we're not ready to go. And then in the 3rd quarter of 2011, which is January, we would be bringing on board a replacement for a retiree. That's a replacement, it's not an additional firefighter.
That's July 2011.
January.
No, January 2011.
Q3.
Are you talking 3rd quarter of the calendar year, or are you talking
No,
fiscal?
No,
year?
no,
Quarterly. I'm looking
That's
at-
all fiscal year months.
That's all
Fiscal
fiscal
year,
year.
right, okay.
Okay?
So the-
You got it? And then, as you can see, when the additional firefighters come in, and then in the quarter 2 of 2012, we would hope to get a 5th North Reading firefighter ALS trained. That would be that would be the first existing firefighter.
So, excuse me, let me just back up here. So as far as the replacement, that would be a new person on staff with an overlap of the retirement, or are you waiting for the retirement to bring them on?
I figured it is not an overlap, but it, that's something we might decide to adjust to.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out here,
No, keep in mind that there is an individual, in terms of staffing.
if it's an
One
individual
of the
retiring.
new guys that we bring in July 1.
Yeah.
Will fill that slot. Now, that's, what's important about that too is that if this ALS, first of all, if the